The 364th edition of the Four Corners podcast starts right now.
This is the Four Corners podcast.
And that could make a difference. Lawson at the buzzer. Got it! Maybe not. Ty Lawson wins it at the buzzer.
Deep three. And Green rips down the rebound in traffic. 4-on-1.
What a great job. What a terrific job in transition. I mean, you couldn't plan that any better as a coach.
Gets the roll. Here we go. Page has it. Carolina down one. 84-83. Page into the front court with 4 seconds. Page to the rim. Got it! He got it! 9/10 of a second to go. Inbounds. Washington gets it to Warren. His full court shot. No good. Marcus Page baby. Does it for the Tar Heels. Carolina wins it.
Don't force it if you're Goss.
Comes in. Blocked by Meeks. Buried up ahead to Jackson. And he tucks it down for the 5-point lead. Matthews off the mark. And this year, the confetti is going to fall for North Carolina. They're not going to be denied this time. Inside 30 overall. Love, top of the key. Oh! Big time delivery.
Here are your hosts, Josh Marlowe and Anthony Pagnotta.
Hello and welcome into another live edition of the Four Corners podcast, coming to you live on a Saturday night. We're powered by Carolina Electrical Services. Josh and Anthony with you guys. I'm going to take you through Carolina's 84-76 defeat to NC State in the ACC Tournament final, a loss that caps off an improbable run for the Wolfpack. They win 5 games in 5 days to become the first ACC team to ever do such a thing in the conference tournament, the second team ever in the history of college basketball to do so. And Wolfpack will be dancing in 2024 with tonight's win over Carolina. The Heels, as we know, already safely secured in the tournament field. You know, a lot of people still think they are, in the conversation to be that final 1 seed. This loss may impact that once we get the bracket sometime tomorrow. And we'll talk about that either tonight or we'll be back with you first thing in the morning previewing Selection Sunday. We're going to talk about this game, though. The first thing I'm going to do is tip my hat to NC State. DJ Horn was phenomenal for them, 29 points, 9 of 15 from the field, in 32 minutes. DJ Burns, 20 points, 7 assists in 28 minutes. 2 best players on the court tonight. And they did not look like dudes that were playing there for Burns, his 5th game in as many days, and Horn, his 4th game, because he did not play in the win over Louisville. With that being said, when Carolina lost to Kentucky and they lost to UConn, you guys wanted vitriol. You wanted kicking and screaming and yelling. And I wasn't going to do that because I was happy with the way Carolina competed. And I was looking at it and saying in the long run, I thought Carolina was showing then the ingredients of the type of team they are now, which is a team that won a regular season conference title, which is a team that played for an ACC championship. And it's still going to be a team that come tomorrow afternoon when you're filling out your bracket, they're going to be playing deep into the NCAA tournament. But they got to play much harder than they did tonight. Had Carolina played to the standard, the way that we've seen this team play, and they would have gotten beaten because State just made plays down the stretch, I would take this loss a lot easier. I look at tonight and I look at a team that, frankly, I don't identify with. You give up 84 points. You allow a team to shoot 55% from the field. To do it for one half is one thing. To do it over the course of 40 minutes is another. And I think that's where I'm frustrated by tonight because this game was there for Carolina. As bad as you played in the first half, you lead by 1. You felt like you had the momentum going into the break after Cormac Ryan hit the 3 to beat the Horn. But I knew when Carolina did not come out of the second half, and college basketball coaches talk about the middle 8 all the time. The final 4 minutes of the first half, the first 4 minutes of the second half. When Carolina didn't hit State in the mouth and make it gut-checking time, I had a bad feeling because the longer State hung around, the more they believed. The adrenaline at that point was at an all-time high. And then when State got the lead, it just felt like they were never going to relinquish it. And that's exactly what happened. And it ultimately results in a second loss for Hubert Davis to NC State. We talk about how hard it is to beat a team 3 times. Carolina was able to do it with Florida State, but not able to do it tonight. They fall to NC State in an ACC tournament final that a lot of different people will be talking about for many different reasons for many years to come.
Yeah, and none of it will be about Carolina because, this is the darling team. Everybody loves NC State. They're going to go and lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament, so it doesn't really matter. But look, man, I don't know. I like tonight was certainly not great. We got Richard Patterson who says this team's not making a deep run. Like, Richard, dude, you're a lacrosse guy. Just focus on that. Like, seriously, this team is making a deep run. There's no denying that. But this is certainly not great in terms of them stacking up with some of the best teams in the country. This is not what you want because we thought this team was back in rhythm defensively. And I got to be honest, this was the one concern that I did have with playing NC State. This was the team where they started to turn it around against them in that second half. And playing them again, I don't know. Is it the mental thought of this is what now turns it back to what we saw before? I don't think so, but there will be people that think that. To me, the effort tonight was not where it needed to be, especially defensively. Part of it was, definitely on Hubert Davis. I thought the game plan was horrible in so many different ways. I thought, the one thing he did right was he switched Cormac Ryan on to DJ Horn, and that cooled him off for a little bit, but it still wasn't enough, and eventually he heated back up. But I thought the way they defended DJ Burns, they doubled him early. It led to a couple of open looks, and they never doubled him again. And I don't think that was smart. It was just that they were doubling too early in possessions when he was too far towards the top of the 3-point line. He was, you got to wait until he gets in the paint. And so I don't know. It's, him not, pressing earlier didn't make a whole lot of sense. But I think at this point, it's something that he only wants to use strategically. I don't know if he just believes that his team doesn't have the stamina to be able to do it the entire game. But to me, the other concerning thing is it's not just on the defensive end of the floor. It's the fact that offensively, RJ Davis had no help, and he didn't have help last night outside of Armando Bacot. So the guys that are the supporting cast, I thought that you would see the guys respond today. Cormac Ryan wasn't great again, and Harrison Ingram struggled again. These guys have to pick it back up. They're going to have to be able to score for Carolina in the tournament because RJ Davis and Armando Bacot are not the guys that should be carrying you throughout the entire tournament. Yes, they should be leading you in scoring, but if they're the two guys that are going to do things offensively and everybody else is just going to stand around for the majority of the game, then Carolina's not going to advance that deep in the tournament. I don't think that's going to happen, but this was the problem tonight is that this happened in a tournament final. That's the problem. If you were going to put this effort up, why didn't you put this effort up last night and just lose in the semis? Like, seriously. That's where I'm at with it. But Now, I mean, and you lose to the 10 seed, you probably are not going to be the final 1 seed. They are going to use everything possible to make Iowa State the last 1 seed, and that just sucks for this team.
Well, I mean, I think what sucks more than anything is how vocal this team was about wanting to win this event. We're going to talk about the seeding because it's a talking point. That right now is not the most important thing. Like, if Carolina's a 1, great. If Carolina's a 2, great. They're going to be playing in Charlotte, and I still think this is a team that was going to play deep into the tournament. We talked about going into the event that we didn't want to win the event. We didn't want to have to go and win 15 straight games. The season's all about having a 6-game winning streak. Now you have that opportunity to do that. What sucks is that I didn't want to lose to NC State. Like, if Carolina loses to Virginia, Boston College, whoever, outside of a rival, this doesn't hurt as much. We openly talk about how unimportant the ACC tournament is, but when you get in it, and as a guy like me that loves my conference, that loves the history and the tradition of my conference, I want to win the thing. I'm not mad that I'm mad that Carolina got beat. I'm more mad at who they got beaten by, and B, in the way that they got played, or the way that they played to get beat, and that's where I'm at. And for what it's worth, Armando Bacot and RJ Davis, they've played in national championship games. They've played in a Final Four setting. They've never played in an ACC tournament final. And while the league can be devalued as much as it wants to be nationally, it's still a unique setting. It's still a special setting no matter where it's played. And to be honest with you, I thought Carolina was just caught up in the moment and too emotional. Whereas for NC State, I think the rivalry part of it helped them get up for it. The adrenaline of playing in a title game definitely was there. Their confidence was as high as it was. It felt like Carolina was just caught up in all of that. And what they've done such a great job of this season is making every game, no matter the opponent, about themselves and sticking to the game plan, playing to our strengths, playing to who we are, and dictating the way the game's going to be played. That didn't happen tonight. And that's what's okay to be frustrated about. You want to go ahead and quit on the season, then you were never bought in anyway. You were never committed to this team to begin with, because this team showed from the word go it was a different team. And they've shown the ability so far this season to bounce back from setbacks. They've only lost back-to-back games once, and that was to a UConn team that won the Big East tournament and a Kentucky team that is as unpredictable a team that there is in college basketball. And so I don't look at this and think, we can't make the Final Four. I don't look at this and say we can't win a national championship. I think if anything, what it did was it gave them one final reminder and just another example of the way you got to play this time of the year to do the things you want to do. And that's okay. The 2017 loss to Duke in the semifinals, they won a national championship in a game where, Joel Berry got in foul trouble. They had a bunch of other stuff around them, impact the outcome of that game. So, the 2016 team needed to win the ACC tournament to make that Final Four run. I've loved the way, for the most part, this team has responded after defeats, and now they've got to put together a 6-game winning streak, something they're very capable of doing. Let's dive into the box score. And it's not pretty. Carolina shot 37% from the field, 25 of 67. They finished the game 2 of 16 from the field, 1 of 13. If you want to give it a little bit more context. On the flip side, as I mentioned, State shot 55% from the field. I think it was 58% in the first half. And you just were never able to recreate the magic defensively in the second half like you did 2 weeks ago when they shot great for the first 20 minutes, but couldn't keep that up over the course of 40. Perimeter shooting outside of RJ Davis, a problem. Carolina just 8 of 30 from deep. That was 27%. Meanwhile, State, a lot more, measured with their three-point attempts, just 6 of 14 from the outside. But that works up to 43%. Free throw shooting, Carolina 18 of 23, but State was 22 of 29. Not many times Carolina has put the opponent at the foul line more than them. And that was the case once in this game tonight. Just 8 UNC turnovers led to 10 points for NC State. 10 NC State turnovers led to 11 points for Carolina. Somehow, and it didn't feel like it in game, Carolina won the rebounding margin 38-33. They did get out rebounded on the defensive glass 31-27, but they won the offensive glass 11-2. They win second chance points 13-2. You just feel like with 11 offensive rebounds, you need more than 13 points. That wasn't the case tonight. Both teams got 6 points from their bench. State outscored Carolina in the painted area 26-22. Fast break points 19-3 Carolina. When this team was out in the open court, they were dangerous. 17 assists for Carolina on 25 made baskets. 13 assists for State on their 28 made baskets. The game was tied 5 times, 6 different lead changes. But Carolina led for just a minute and 4 seconds in tonight's ball game, which, I think it's a telling thing, because I think it told you and it outlines who the better team was. Carolina won the opening tip, and that's about the only thing they won in this ball game. Every loose ball, every 50-50 ball, every hustle play, everything was done by NC State. And the one thing about this team that we've been able to say all year long is no one works harder. No one plays harder. No matter when Carolina wasn't playing great, they were still outplayed. They were still competing on that end of the court, or just competing in general. And that was not the case tonight. And I think you look up and down the box score, and outside for a few stats here and there, there's no way to hide the fact or run away from the fact that State was the better team on the court tonight.
Yeah, and that's the thing that just sucks, because it's like you said, this team has been that team the whole year. You've never questioned if they're the team that wants it more. And State looked like the more desperate team, despite Carolina saying, and Armando Bacot said it, that we're a team desperate for an ACC title. So, that just sucks, man. But, the thing is that NC State knew they needed this one. Carolina, I think, saw it as a bit of a luxury. Even if they won't admit that, they saw it as, we would really like it. But even if we don't, we're still the team that makes the NCAA tournament. But for me, you can't look at games that way. And, especially when you're that, again, it's because you're in a tournament final. Like, you're in the tournament final and you're going against your rival. That should have been the motivation, and it just didn't seem like it was there at times tonight. It seemed like a team that just knew at a certain point, we're not winning tonight. And that's, that you don't want to see that this time of year. But look, hopefully this is that wake-up call. It needs to be. I think it can be. I think it should be. But it does show you the other thing that is very obvious at this point, that if this team does not hold teams to under 80 points in the tournament, then they could be in some trouble. They have to do a better job of, when they get into the tournament against some of these really good offensive teams, they've got to be able to hold them under 80, because if they don't, I don't know if they have the scoring. I know that's shocking to think after what we saw earlier in the year, but to me, they showed tonight, again, what we've been concerned about at times throughout the year is, do they have enough scoring around RJ and Armando? That's what worries me a little bit about this team going into the tournament. But at the same time, you're hoping that they won't be faced with those types of situations, and that this is something that Hubert Davis can point to and use as the motivating factor, because I'm going to tell you right now, if this was a Roy Williams team that did this, they would hear about this probably even at the end of the season if they won a national championship.
Well, I mean, first off, if Carolina's given up 84 points in a tournament game, it's fair to expect you to get you should expect to get beat. You give up more than 80, you should expect to lose. The 70-point threshold's the thing. When they give up less than 70, they're undefeated. When they give up more than 70, they're 8-7. So you give up more than 80, I'm not going to expect to win, unless you're playing Kentucky and that's just how you play. Because they can't guard either. Like the other guys will be able to make plays offensively, but it's the 70-point threshold, which was the problem, or is the problem, because that stat's out there. State had 70 points with 5 minutes to go in the game. So, just another sign of the fact that this game was not where Carolina has kept games and kept opponents at all season long. You won the last game 79-70. And that was with giving up 45 points in the first half. You give up, 39 points tonight in the first half, and then you give up as many points as you did in the second half. It is hard to win. And when you give up, when you allow a team to shoot over 50% from the field and over 40% from three, it's hard to look at that box score and think, yeah, we should win the ball game. And it's a big reason why Carolina didn't. Two quotes coming out from the game. No audio tonight because we're going with a quick reaction with how late the game went. Armando spoke about defending Burns. I thought I did a good job earlier in the season. I just allowed him to catch the ball wherever he wanted to. That's part of it, man. And you got to give you got to give credit to Burns. He did a really good job creating space and getting wherever he wanted to get to on the floor. For whatever reason, tonight Armando didn't have as much resistance against him. He was able to feel Armando and kind of just still get wherever he wanted to, shoot, score over him. And some of the shots, like when he's falling 14 feet away from the basket, you're living with that shot. He makes his first three of the season all night long. When those types of plays are happening, you probably just think to yourself internally, yeah, it's not our night.
Well, it's also just how much he's playing. Remember that in the earlier matchups in the season, and really just, if you go back and watch how State played earlier in the year, he didn't play nearly as much because there was a time where he sort of fell out of favor with the coaches. They didn't think that he was giving a ton of effort. But once he got into the ACC tournament, I mean, Keats has been playing him a ton. He knew that he was one of his best players. He had no choice but to play him. And if he wanted to make this run, and I mean, you saw it paid off big time for him. So I think that was also part of it, because I mean, it felt, we saw this at times from Burns against Armando. This is how it works. And it also doesn't help that when he ends up defending him, the officiating, the way they call it is ridiculous at times. But it's the same thing that they do at times with Zach Edey. These guys that are built different, they don't really know how to call a game fairly. Anytime that they see a touch against them, there were a couple of times, both the two fouls that were called against Armando, his first two, were horrendous calls. But they did it because they wanted to try to even up the foul count. And I don't really know. I thought the one thing that he did later in the game that he probably should have done a little earlier was he was fronting Burns. And I think that we should have seen that a little bit more, force those guards to have to lob it inside to him, especially because he was fronting him out near the 3-point line, which that's an area where he was catching all night and really just backing you down from. And that's one of his go-to things. So, I think that's something that you would have liked to see handled a little bit better. But the most important thing was you needed to see them handle the double teams a little bit better. And if they would have, they might have been able to slow him down at least a little bit earlier in the game than they did.
The other thing that didn't make any sense was how long it took them to put Jalen Withers on him and put a smaller defender on him that can get up into his body space a lot more easily, because I thought Withers competed his tail off. And I thought the 2 or 3 possessions that Withers was on Burns, he did what you asked him to do. And so, and look, guys, we said it in January. We said it in March. Burns is a difficult matchup because he's a unicorn because he's 280 pounds, but he's got nimble feet. His footwork is ridiculous. And his passing, he can control the game with his passing. And that's what he did tonight. It was a simple game plan. State just isolated him on the one side of the floor. He backed his body into the middle of the court where he basically became a guy that could either shoot it, pass it, or just make a play for himself or someone else. And, Carolina's not going to see many guards or many bigs like him once you get into the NCAA tournament. And if they run into an Edey, they run into a Donovan Clingan, two guards or two bigs that are really, really good too in their own right. They're not the guys that DJ Burns is. And it was, we knew that was going to be the matchup tonight going into the game. He got the better of Armando for the first time this season, and it results in State getting the win. And Hubert Davis also spoke on the 5 games in 5 days, just in case you're wondering that State, played on Tuesday, played on Wednesday, played on
Thursday, Thanks for clarifying that.
Played on Friday, then played again tonight. Hube said, I think too much is made out of 5 games in 5 days. We know they would play with great energy, and they did. And I don't think that they make too much out of 5 games in 5 days because it's a hard thing to ask a team to do. It's why we've only ever seen it, done twice in the history of Champ Week. But it's okay for him to be disappointed in his team's energy and his team's effort because for a team that looked loose and looked ready to go in the pregame warm-up, this was a team that in a lot of ways played tight and just got outworked. They got out-hustled. And like I said earlier, it felt like they just kind of got caught up in the moment of it being NC State's moment and not making it their moment. And a big reason why Carolina fell short tonight. Stat of the game, 12-1. And that stat is in the last 13 ACC tournament finals, teams leading at the half are 12-1. That one loss, that lone loss, North Carolina tonight in the ACC championship game. It felt like a good omen when we got that stat after Cormac Ryan hit the 3 that, well, history and fate are on our side. And as we learned the hard way, Destiny and Cinderella were on NC State's side, and they were able to overcome that and end that run. But I go back to what I said a few moments ago. When Carolina didn't come out of the second half with the energy and the effort and the intensity that we have seen them come out of halves with after not playing up to par in the first half, I don't know about you. I was concerned. I was worried, and sure enough, by the 14-minute mark, State took control of the game, and they never looked back on their way to the win.
Yeah, I mean, look, I thought, State was, they came out, punched them in the mouth to start the second half. And yeah, I mean, I definitely a little concerned because you felt like the way the first half played out that you were playing a very similar game to the one that you played back on March 2nd in the Smith Center. But you still felt like, okay, they've got a chance they're still around, very similar to what we saw in the first half. Can they fight back? And they had multiple opportunities to fight back. It's just, down the stretch, I thought you kind of knew within, when they had, I think it was an 8 or 9 point lead with, I think it was 8 with 7 minutes to go. That was about the time you started feeling it, because that was about the time that the shots for RJ Davis stopped falling and nobody else was able to pick up the slack from the outside, despite having good looks. That's the other frustrating part is, yeah, defensively, that's the area you're going to look at and you're going to say this team has to be better. But there were looks from the outside that Carolina had, and they should have knocked them down, and they just couldn't throughout the night. Nobody, I mean, anytime that Carolina needed to hit a big shot, they didn't. And that's where you started to get that feeling of this team, that this is just not their night. again, hopefully that's something that doesn't translate into the NCAA tournament. But the fact of the matter is the way to, sort of cope with those rough shooting nights, which is what we're going to see at different points, is by playing well on the defensive end of the floor. And, again, I think, the standard has been set for this team. We know they have the capability of being one of, if not the best defensive team in the country. And they need to come out and play like that for 6 straight games when they get to the NCAA tournament. Tonight showed you that no matter who the opponent is, you have to be prepared to play that way, because, it became pretty obvious after a while that it wasn't going to happen for Carolina.
All right, so that's a quick look at, or our first look at, tonight's loss to NC State in the ACC Tournament final. Now Carolina will await the selection Sunday, find out their seeding, their region, and ultimately where they'll play their first and hopefully second round games of the NCAA tournament. All eyes point to them being in Spectrum Center next Thursday and Friday. Coming up next, we'll get back into the loss and talk about some of the issues that Carolina experienced offensively tonight, and really just take a look at where this team is after tonight's defeat. But first, we got to play you a quick word from one of our partners.
Hey there, Josh here for the Autograph Fandom app. Want to get rewarded for listening to our show? The team at Autograph, co-founded by Tom Brady, is redefining the fan experience by letting users earn points for the acts of fandom they take every day, like listening to this show. The Autograph Fandom app gives you access to your favorite UNC content in one place and offers rewards like tickets, exclusive merchandise, and much more. You're already listening to our show, but now you can earn points and get rewarded for it. Head over to the Apple App Store and search for Autograph Fandom Rewarded and download it today for free using the referral code HeelTough. Link and code are also in our podcast description.
All right, guys, welcome back inside here to the Four Corners podcast, hanging out with you live on a Saturday night after Carolina falls to NC State in the ACC Tournament final. We got a lot of people in with us on the chat. Thank all of you that have commented so far, and we appreciate you staying up late with us on a not-so-happy pod as Carolina does fall to NC State. So getting back into the game, and I mentioned this in the opening monologue, Carolina finishes 2 of 16 down the stretch from the field. They were one of their last 13 to go a little bit further, into the offensive struggles. And, look, State, made their fair share of free throws, did not make a field goal the last 3.5 minutes of the ballgame. And there were plays there for Carolina to make. You had a sequence where I think if RJ would have hit the 3 off of the turnover or Cormac Ryan hits the 3 on the offensive rebound, Carolina cuts the game to 4, and all of a sudden, State's not out of the woods yet. But that wasn't the case. Individually, RJ Davis did everything he could for Carolina. 30 points, was 10 of 26 from the field, 4 of 13 from beyond the 3-point line, 6 rebounds, 5 assists in 36 minutes, but not enough help. But Armando gave you 18 and 12. It was 6 of 10 from the field, 6 of 8 from the foul line. It's an 85th double-double. It's really hard to complain about those numbers, but it felt like on a night where Carolina was having to score and keep pace with NC State, you needed more from him. And then Harrison Ingram was the only other guy in double figures. And it was on 10 points, 3 of 11 shooting, 3 of 9 from 3 in 34 minutes. Your other 2 starters, Elliot Cadeau, 4 points, 2 of 8 from the field. Cormac Ryan, 8 points, 2 of 7 from the field. And your bench combines to score just 6 points. Simply put, man, that's not good enough. Can you win games with RJ scoring 30 and Armando scoring 18? Yeah, you can. how many games can you win consecutively in an elimination tournament when you really have two guys scoring the ball? I don't know, and I don't want to find out. And this offense has been fueled by their defense all year long, and this game was not, even with Carolina scoring 19 points in the fast break game, this game was not in the open court enough to make the game easier for Cormac Ryan to get transition threes. And Harrison Ingram's been an offensive enigma all year long. There are some nights, i.e. against Duke and Chapel Hill and State and Chapel Hill, he looks like a first-team All-ACC player offensively. And then there's nights like tonight where indecisive, not strong with the ball, not really looking to be assertive on the offensive end. It feels like Carolina's playing 3-on-5, 4-on-5 offensively. And so I think tonight is a great reminder to those guys that just because you got you got the ACC Player of the Year in RJ and a second-team All-ACC guy in Armando Bacot, everybody's got to produce. Everybody's got to be able to step up and make plays. And there were plays there to be made tonight by everybody. And whether it was they weren't tough enough or they weren't confident enough or whatever, they didn't make the plays. And big reason why Carolina got beat.
Yeah, and it's something that is worth monitoring, at least going into the tournament and watching in that first weekend, because it's now 2 straight games that we've seen this. And, we thought that Cormac Ryan had turned the corner. Not saying that he hasn't, but we got to pump the brakes a little bit on that. Enigma, probably the best way to describe Harrison Ingram's offensive game. Because, there are times where you are saying to yourself, we need to see this guy shoot the ball more because we like what we're seeing. And there's nights like tonight where opportunities are there and he can't knock down the shots. And Elliot Cadeau, look, great start, great effort game in the opener in the quarterfinals against Florida State. The last 2 games, you saw a freshman struggle. And the problem tonight was that Seth Trimble wasn't there to pick him up. Seth Trimble did not play well, one of his worst games in recent memory. And, that's the thing that really hurt Carolina, because you went from Elliot Cadeau struggling in the game last night against Pittsburgh, playing 20 minutes, and Trimble playing 24, to Trimble struggling tonight so much that Cadeau, even with how bad he struggled, played 29 minutes to Trimble's 16. And I don't think that was the wrong call, because I just didn't think that Trimble really had it tonight. But, that's the thing. You just right now, and there were multiple times during the conference season that we asked this question: do they have enough consistent scoring around RJ Davis and Armando? Hopefully Cormac Ryan can return to form. The good news is that, he will not have to play consecutive days. So maybe that's part of it for him. At this point, he is a man that came over during colonial times. So maybe he is feeling a little worn down. Age might be setting in for him. But no, in all seriousness, I just, I'm hoping that, he will be able to, find some sort of rhythm, at least for the first weekend for Carolina, and, hopefully just roll from there. And Ingram, you simply just need more from him. He's got to be more efficient. Like 3 of 11 is just not efficient enough. You love the fact that the 3 makes were from beyond the arc, and then you're going to need help from back there, once you get into the NCAA tournament. But he's also a guy that has to be able to do some things inside. And the other thing about Ingram that was concerning tonight was, and I know Carolina as a whole still rebounded well, you thought he'd have more of a presence inside. And this entire stretch of games here, I was going to say weekend, and I guess it is, but it starts on Thursday for Carolina. These 3 games, he was almost nowhere to be found on the glass after that first game. He had 10 in that first game, 5 offensive rebounds, and we thought, okay, we're going to see the Harrison Ingram that's ready to rebound at an extremely high level. Well, the last 2 days, he hasn't been great on the glass for Carolina, And in order for them to, I think, reach the level that they want to, you need to have Harrison Ingram rebounding inside, especially if you're going to play against a team like you faced tonight at NC State, who has two bigs that can rebound the ball at a high level.
Yeah, and I think it's something that, it's why Carolina becoming the rebounding team they've been has been impressive, because they're not built to be the 7th best rebounding team. But it stresses the importance of everybody to be involved in that. And for the most part, Ingram has been a guy that has played with relentless energy and effort. And he led the ACC in rebounding in ACC games. Not Armando Bacot, not Mohamed Diarra, who played out of this world for 5 straight games for State.
That dude should never eat ever again. Kevin Keats may tell him, you're never eating ever again.
So it's something that the thing about this team is, as good as they are, they've got to play a certain style, a certain brand to win. Can they win different types of games? Yes. But it started all year with their defense, with their rebounding. And when they do that, man, they're one of the best teams in the country. When they don't do it, they look like a team that can get picked off early in the NCAA tournament. So now we'll get into probably my biggest gripe with tonight, and that's the game plan. And I'm not going to come here and call for Hubert Davis to get fired. I'm not going to come here and blame it all on Hubert. He's not the one playing the game. He's coaching the game. And I think he did what he thought he had to try to do to put his team in a position to win. So for those people that want to fire Hubert or complain about Hubert or put the blame on Hubert, frankly, shut up. Frankly, quit watching. Frankly, go somewhere else, because I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. I don't have the bandwidth to do this for the next 30 years with Carolina's head basketball coach. We did it with Roy Williams. I'm not doing it with Hubert Davis, so shut up. With that being said, the game plan tonight was not what it needed to be, and the scout was bad. And, we talked in the preview earlier this morning about, it was the last key to the game, but we said it might be the most important, was for Carolina to control tempo and for Carolina to dictate the way the game was going to be played. And with that, they needed to speed the game up and full court press and really get this game going up and down. And you'll look at the stat sheet and see 19 fast break points. And man, that's really, really good, because Carolina was running off of their makes and running off of their misses. But you know what they weren't doing? They weren't pressing, and they weren't making State have to work the ball up this court, and they weren't forcing State to try to get into their action 45 feet away from the basket with 18 seconds on the shot clock. Not until the last 3 minutes and 47 seconds. And you know what happened the last 3 minutes and 47 seconds? State didn't make a field goal. And you can look at it and say, yeah, Carolina was fouling and they extended the game, but they forced 3 turnovers. Mm-hmm. And if Carolina makes a handful of shots, it's a different game. And so to me, that made absolutely 0 sense. How we never took the fight to them. We never said, yeah, this is your 5th game in 5 days. We're going to make you grind. We're going to make this game be played our way. And, when they finally went to it with 3:47 to go, because that's at the point in the game where you got to, and I see them hold them without a field goal, and I see them force turnovers that gave Carolina an opportunity to get back into the game, all the more frustrating for me, because I believe in the press with this team. We've seen how effective it was tonight. And I can't help but think that if Carolina pressed early and often, if we would have had a different result.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is just this is not something that they're going to do all the time. We've seen that. They wait until a certain time to go to it. I don't know why And the thing is you can't use fatigue as a reason, because the team that you were playing on the other side was way more fatigued than you were, and yet they fought through it. So I mean, I would have liked to see it a lot more. Definitely, the thing was, to me, like, when they came out in the second half, I think you should have seen it. And especially once you saw that their rhythm from the first half had carried over to the second half. Then it's time to go to it. Because when you did that in the game against Florida State, I mean, that single-handedly brought you back in that game. Now, this game, you didn't have to come from as far behind. And look, I get it. Part of it is just you have to learn how to defend in the half court. We cannot rely on that. And look, the first time that they ran it, they did not run the action. I mean, it didn't work. Now Diarra missed an easy lay-in that, was there initially, but he gets his own rebound and finishes anyways. So it was still a successful possession. But after that, once Carolina went to it in the last 4 minutes, there was no answer from NC State. And, the thing that you have to wonder, and we saw it again, I mean, we saw it the other night against Duke, where State almost melted down late in the game. Like, that's something that they seem to like to try to do in games, especially ones of this magnitude. So who knows if they would have turned it over as often as they did if Carolina used it earlier. But even still, slowing things down just a little bit, because this team, believe it or not, I mean, this State team at times really did want to try to run with you a little bit, especially early in the game, and it worked. But really just, throwing their offense out of rhythm, forcing them to have to go to Burns a little bit later, forcing him to have to get into his back down game a little quicker and get to the basket quicker. That could have definitely helped you. And so, yeah, that's a frustrating thing from Hubert Davis, but part of it is that, the guys just have to execute in the half court, because we said it early in the season that, look, it's something you want to see, but it's something that this team only really likes to use strategically. So it's up to these guys to be able to defend in the half court. And tonight it wasn't there for the majority of the evening. I thought there were definitely times where guys just hit tough shots, but I thought, especially as the game wore along, you just saw guys simply getting beat to the basket and not being able to stay in front of their man. And they have to be able to do that, because when you get into March, we've talked about how important guard play is. As March wears along, as the tournament wears along, you're going to run into teams with really good guards, and you've got to be able to stay in front of them. But I would like to see Hubert Davis adjust to the situation that's going on as well and go to that press earlier if this situation arises in the NCAA tournament. Because unlike what happened tonight, there is not a second chance if you or there's not another game to look forward to use as this game, this loss as motivation moving forward. You lose a game in the NCAA tournament because you couldn't defend in the half court, your season's over.
Yep, you're right. And I'm sure that'll be made clear to them when they review this film, when they get back to Chapel Hill, and when they start preparing for their next opponent, which they'll find out tomorrow night. So what I want to do really quick, we're not going to talk about seeding. We're going to be with you guys first thing tomorrow morning. We're going to be live with you at 9 a.m. previewing Selection Sunday. So we're not going to talk about the seeding tonight. Just want to remind you that last time North Carolina won an ACC tournament title and won a national championship was 1982. That was Coach Smith's first national championship. It didn't happen in 1993. It didn't happen in 2005. It didn't happen in 2009. It didn't happen in 2017. Look around the country. The number one team in the country lost its ACC, or they lost their conference tournament final by 28. Purdue, a team that's going to be a 1 seed, lost to Wisconsin. Tennessee, a team that entered Champ Week as the last 1 seed, they lost in their quarterfinal. The only team that has, validated their regular season with their conference tournament so far has been UConn. They won the Big East regular season. They won the Big East tournament. And for my money, UConn's been the best team in college basketball from start to finish. So it's okay to be upset about the loss. It's okay to dislike how you had to lose and who you had to lose to in an ACC tournament final that I think we all wanted as fans for ourselves individually, but for two players in Armando Bacon and RJ Davis that as much as any two players in my life openly talked about how much they wanted to win an ACC tournament title. It's okay to hurt for those guys. But also remember that everything we've done up until this point is to build is to build for what starts next week, and that's the NCAA tournament. Our goal when the season started was to not win an ACC tournament title. Our goal was to win an ACC regular season championship and put ourselves in position for March to be a team that has a chance to make the Final Four and cut down the nets. That's still possible. That's still attainable. And just remember that. It's not – the season isn't over. Mm-hmm. It's just beginning. The most important winning streak that we can go on starts on Thursday or on Friday. It's a 6-game winning streak over the span of 3 weeks. Not the 8-game winning streak that just came to an end tonight. Not the 10-game winning streak we had back in January. The most important winning streak that we can have is a 6-game winning streak starting in the NCAA tournament. And we'll learn about that journey tomorrow evening. And as I mentioned, we'll be here with you guys early in the morning, 9 a.m., with the Selection Sunday preview. And, of course, we'll be with you after Selection Sunday, recapping the selection show and talking all things about Carolina seed and their bracket. With that, that's going to wrap up this edition of the show. Before we let you go, we encourage you to visit the website HeelToughBlog.com, where you can go and read about Carolina's loss to NC State. That will be posted first thing in the morning before we go live on the podcast. And Anthony will also have you covered with Selection Sunday preview sorts, if you will. He'll look around the country at all the top bracketologists to see what they're saying about Carolina's seed line projection going into the show on Sunday night. So just make the Heel Tough blog your home for March for all the latest on Carolina basketball. We've covered you up till this point. We're gonna continue to cover you through what we are hoping is for a long NCAA tournament run. And don't forget, spring practice starts for football on Tuesday. Anthony will have you covered on that front as well. As for the podcast, guys, we've been telling you, we've been urging you, rate, review, and subscribe. You can find us on every major podcasting platform. Simply search the Four Corners Podcast, and we will pop up where, like we just said, rate, review, but ultimately subscribe. We're recording twice a day and on certain days at this point in the season, previewing and recapping games and Selection Sunday and the like. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. That way you don't miss any editions of the show throughout the remainder of the season. Well, with that, guys, that is going to wrap up this edition of the show. I do want to thank Anthony once again for hosting with me. We want to thank you guys for watching and listening. And as always, go Tar Heels.